Good morning and welcome. I'm Carol Plumlee, a member of the board at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston. Whether you are on Zoom or here in the church sanctuary, we're so glad you're with us this morning. No matter how old or how young you are, whether you are on your spiritual journey, however you identify and whomever you love, know you are welcome here. We have quite a few announcements this morning. You may have noticed that it's gotten a little chilly. For unsheltered individuals, cold weather is dangerous and potentially deadly. Our church supports the Fairfax County Hypothermia Prevention Program, preparing and delivering meals for vulnerable people who are homeless and in need of food and shelter. Additional volunteers are needed. There are a variety of volunteer opportunities and no long-term commitment. Please sign up to learn more on the sign-up sheet in the foyer. Our program lead, Pat Berg, will contact you to discuss the program and how you can help. On Sunday, December 4th, we will be recognizing all new members who have recently joined UUCR in a brief welcoming ceremony held during the church service. If you are considering becoming a UUCR member and would like to learn more, please contact Kathy Deligianis, membership co-chair.
Or me this morning.
Thank you to everyone who participated in the 2022 UUCR auction. It was great fun and a huge success due to the great efforts of Kathy Deligianis, Hannah Mullen, and all the wonderful volunteers. Thanks to your generosity, we raised over $20,000 for the church. Good work. To check what you've won and what you owe, go to the auction website, togetherauction.com/UUReston. For questions, contact auction@uureston.org. Helping Hungry Kids. Please sign up in the East Foyer to donate food for Helping Hungry Kids. On December 4th, our children will be packing food for local elementary school children who lack enough food on weekends and during school breaks. Our goal is to pack 100 bags, each containing food for 6 meals and 2 snacks. Please bring food donations to help local children by Sunday, November 27th. Community Fun Night. You are invited to an evening of fun and fellowship on December 1st from 6 to 8 p.m. The event is open to all ages, with food and supplies for fun winter crafts provided. If you aren't a crafter, you're welcome just to relax, enjoy food and conversation. Look for the RSVP sheet in the East Foyer and sign up by Sunday, November 27th. Annual UUCR Scandinavian Dinner will take place Saturday, December 10th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Everyone is invited to join UUCR Scandinavian Dinner. Please let Julia Norgard know the type of dish you want to bring, and her email is jnorgard4@gmail.com. Denise Kerwin wants to tell you about the alternative gift market.
Sorry, one more announcement. After a 2-year break, we will be having our alternative gift market here in the sanctuary, live and in person, also online if you're not available on December the 3rd. We will be welcoming over 15 representatives from over 15 charitable organizations to tell you about their work. In addition, we will have handmade crafts from Amani, Africa, and special this year, a Ukrainian bake sale. But we need volunteers to make this happen. Some of you have already volunteered with the Sign Up Genius online. If you haven't done so yet, I especially need table volunteers. If you don't know what that is, I'll be in the foyer after church and you can ask me. And we need cashiers. So, also I forgot, we're also going to have our kids list this year. So if you have younger kids, we have special lists just for them so they can participate in the gift market also. So see me after church in the foyer to sign up to help us out. Thanks so much.
Now, let us center ourselves for worship. Please take some deep, quieting breaths with me. Let us enter our time of worship together as we listen to this morning's prelude, Thanksgiving by George Winston.
Welcome, everyone, to our Thanksgiving celebration. Linda?
This morning, let us remember the Manahoe, Powhatan, and people of other nations whose land we are now on. Let us honor them and their many times great-grandchildren living today by recognizing their history and the current challenges they face. Since 1970, more than 50 years ago, the Wampanoag of New England have marked Thanksgiving Day as a national day of mourning in recognition of the history of the European invasion and the unfair treatment that continues. Let us remember this today.
Many native peoples of this land have long traditions of giving thanks, knowing the power of gratitude. Members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which is also known as the Iroquois Confederacy or League of Five Nations, have a tradition of opening every meeting and every important gathering with a Thanksgiving address. In Braided Sweetgrass, Dr. Robin Walkemer writes about children of the Onondaga school near where she lives, standing outside every morning reading this address. No matter how cold or warm or wet the day, they begin each morning outdoors with this long reading. Dr. Kilmerer wrote that her Oneondaga neighbors were happy to share the words.
This morning, we're reading a small portion of it for you. Then, throughout the service, we invite you to consider what you're thankful for. If you're in the sanctuary, you may write on a piece of paper or the paper leaves, and if online, you might find an object, a photograph, create artwork, or jot down a few words that show what you are grateful for.
Now take a deep breath with me and listen to part of the Haudenosaunee Thanksgiving address. The people would say, "Today we have gathered and we see that the cycles of life continue. We have been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all living things. So now we bring our minds together as one as we give greetings and thanks to each other as people. Now our minds are one."
We are all thankful to our mother, the earth, for she gives us all that we need for life. She supports our feet as we walk about upon her. It gives us joy that she continues to care for us as she has from the beginning of time. To our mother, we send greetings and thanks. Now our minds are one.
We give thanks to all the waters of the world for quenching our thirst and providing us with strength. Water is life. We know its power in many forms: waterfall and rain, mists and streams, rivers and oceans. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to the spirit of water. Now our minds are one.
Now we turn to the vast fields of plant life. As far as the eye can see, plants grow, working many wonders. They sustain many life forms. With our minds gathered together, we give thanks and look forward to seeing plant life for many generations to come. Now our minds are one.
Now we turn our thoughts to the Creator, or Great Spirit, and send greetings and thanks for all the gifts of creation. Everything we need to live a good life is here on this Mother Earth. For all the love that is still around us, we gather our minds together as one and send our choicest words of greetings and thanks to the Creator. Now our minds are one.
We have now arrived at the place where we end our words. Of all the things we have named, it was not our intention to leave anything out. If something was forgotten, we leave it to each individual to send such greetings and thanks in their own way. Now, our minds are one.
The internet link to the full Haudenosaunee Thanksgiving address is in the order of service. During this holiday week, you might want to look at that and at the National Museum of American Indian article entitled "Harvest Ceremony Beyond the Thanksgiving Myth" at the same link. Welcome.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 349, "We Gather Together." If you are participating on Zoom, the words will be in your chat box. Those of us here in the sanctuary, please rise in body or spirit and join us. We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We gather together to join in the journey, affirming humility, our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation, when bound to human care and love, and we are free.
Good morning. Our chalice lighting words today come from Poetry of Presence, an anthology of mindfulness poems. It's this morning, Barbara Crooker provides us Praise Song. Praise the light of late November, the thin sunlight that goes deep in the bones. Praise the crows chattering in the oak trees. Though they are clothed in night, they do not despair. Praise what little there's left. The small boats of milkweed pods, husks, hulls, shells, leaves, the architecture of trees. Praise the meadow of dried weeds, yarrow, goldenrod, chicory, the remains of summer. Praise the blue sky that hasn't cracked yet. Praise the sun slipping down behind the trees. Praise the quilt of leaves that covers the grass. Oak, sweet gum, sugar maple, chestnut. Though darkness gathers, praise our crazy fallen world. It's all we have, and it will be enough.
At UUCR, we have a tradition of singing our covenant together every Sunday. Love is the spirit of this church. As usual, if you are at home on Zoom, we hope you will sing along. And here in the sanctuary, let's remain seated as we sing our covenant. If you are visiting us this morning for the first time, we hope you will accept this song as a blessing to you.
Now is the time for all ages. So if you're feeling young of body or young of spirit, there is plenty of room up here to come forward. And there are also seats in the front row. Take a seat. Welcome, welcome. Our story this morning is called Grandmother's House, and it's by Unitarian Universalist minister, the Reverend Christopher Byce. Over the river and through Atlanta traffic to Grandmother's house we'd go. That was our routine during the various family holiday gatherings of my childhood. I remember looking at all the food spread out on Grandma's dining room table, and I need to go get something. There was so much food. There was a large turkey roasted to a golden brown. There were salads, casseroles, dressing, freshly baked rolls, and a variety of vegetables to choose from. But these were of no interest to me. There was only one dish that mattered. It was served in an elegant, fine china bowl with a ladle to the side. I was always excited to see that Grandma had fixed my favorite dish. It was a delicious, piping hot bowl of SpaghettiOs. Grandma had lovingly opened the can, poured the contents into a pot, and warmed them to perfection. And of course, there was the presentation. I am probably one of the few people on earth who has been served SpaghettiOs out of the finest china. My grandmother was a Southern Baptist, so Reverend Christopher Bryce writes. My father, her son, became an Episcopal priest. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister. Grandma died before I became a member of a UU church. I'm not sure how she would have reacted. Perhaps she would have felt the same as my aunt, who once exclaimed to my brother, Sam, Chris is a Unitarian? I thought he was at least an Episcopalian. Would my grandmother have been surprised by my choice? Maybe not. Grandma taught me from my earliest childhood that there is room at the table for someone who is a little bit different from the rest. The memory of the bowl of SpaghettiOs continually reminds me to make room in my heart for people who are a bit odd in their tastes and dispositions. And that means how they act. There can be room in our hearts for diversity. There can be a place at the table for everyone, even the more finicky. I wonder what food you would choose at your holiday table if you could have anything you want. For me, my answer has a little bit of a story. When my son was in high school, he decided to become a vegetarian and not eat any meat because of his concern for the environment. At Thanksgiving, we decided to replace the traditional turkey with macaroni and cheese. It actually wasn't mac and cheese out of the box. It was a fancy kind with several different types of cheese, but it was mac and cheese. And this has actually become a loved family tradition.
That's my favorite kind of mac and cheese.
The one from the box, yeah, a lot of people really like that one too. But more important than the food, I wonder who you might welcome to your table and into your life with a more open and accepting heart. And I hope you'll talk about this with one another throughout the week and today. And we'll talk after the service, okay? Thank you. So now, if you are here in person and would like to offer one or more of your leaves with a statement or drawing about what you are thankful for, you may take it up during Joys and Concerns and put it on the table near the bowl of water, or your happies or sads when we're sharing that. And if you prefer not to share it with someone else and take it home to put on your dining table or somewhere else, just keep it at your seats during Joys and Concerns. And after the service is entirely over, you may come up and choose a leaf to take home with you. If you're online, we invite you to share what you are thankful for online. And you may now go to your seats. Thank you.
So now is the time in our service when we share our joys and concerns and sorrows so that no one ever has to hold them alone. Again, if you are joining us remotely, you may wish to light a candle, real or virtual, where you are to mark what is on your heart. As members of the in-person congregation come forward to bring their leaves forward or to take stone or stones from the water and place them in the bowl which holds so much of our love. And if this Thanksgiving week you wish to take a stone from around the bowl to remind you what's on your heart this morning as you celebrate Thanksgiving, please do so. And those of you at home can also write what is on your heart on the chat, but remember that the chat is public and others will see that. Now let our ritual begin as our accompanist plays. I was so engrossed with all of you coming up, I forgot I'm next. Let us join together in prayer. Spirit of life and love that so faithfully animates this wonderful creation of ours. We are grateful for this community that is with us in both times of joy and sorrow, and we hold in our hearts this morning all who are facing any hardship or challenge or difficulty, those who are grieving, facing illness, the end of life, or disability. In particular, this morning, we continue to hold in our hearts Bob and Marge Lane and Bob Howard. Bob continues at the very end of his life, peaceful now, but with us still. Whether shared here this morning or held silently in our hearts, may our joys be multiplied in community, and may all gathered here find comfort and calm. Amen.
As a self-funded church, UUCR relies on the generosity of its members and friends to fund daily operations and to ensure that the church and its resources are here for us and others now and in the future. Pledges support our worship and music programs, our religious education programs, programs for members and friends, community outreach, and connections to Unitarian Universalism. We now invite you to support the work of UU Reston by making your donation to the collection plate if you're here in the sanctuary, or at the link on the slide and in that chat box. Thank you for your generosity in support of our beloved home.
The choir is going to come forward and lead you all in singing a beautiful song called Grateful by Heidi Wilson. We're going to sing the part of the song that we would like you to sing. The words are very easy to learn. It's just the word grateful. That's the only word you have to sing. So we're going to start by singing your part for you.
Grateful,
This is a story about Lydia Maria Child, an author, poet, and abolitionist who lived in the 1800s, about 200 years ago. Maria sighed. She was almost out of money. Once, she had been the most famous woman author alive, writing books for poor women on how to run a household and raise children without much money. She also wrote a magazine for children, the best-selling magazine of her day. At one time, she received hundreds of letters every week from women and children who loved her stories. Since she was a teenager, Maria had cared about how Native Americans and Black people were treated in America. She became a Unitarian when she was 19. Now she had written a book against slavery. Sadly, this was too much for many people. They stopped buying her magazines. She was called names. She was told she was a fool. And now she was out of money. She sat down at her desk. An editor had told her if she could write a poem, he would publish it. Perhaps that would mean money to buy food, wood for her fireplace, and shoes for winter. Maria remembered when life was easier, when she was a child. She thought of sleigh riding, the only way one could travel in the winter 200 years ago. She thought about the bridges over frozen rivers, going to her grandparents' house for the holidays, joyful memories. She picked up her pen and wrote these lines. Over the river and through the wood, to grandfather's house we go. The publisher loved it. So did the people of America. The poem was set to a popular tune and turned into a song. The original song had 12 verses. We will not sing all 12 verses today. But even though Maria's poem became popular, the famous author and beloved friend to women and children never quite had enough money again. She did continue to speak out for the rights of women and children. Living her principles was more important to Maria than being famous or rich. So we're going to honor her by singing Over the River and Into the Wood. There are a couple of changes you may notice. In the original poem, it was wood, singular. So we're going to sing Over the River and Through the Wood. It was also to grandfather's house, not the grandmother's house, that we sometimes sing. As songs are sung and become popularized over decades, sometimes the words get changed. So we're going to honor her original words and sing grandfather's house. What we're going to do, you will find the words in your order of service. The children's choir is now going to come up here and join me. Please come up, our beautiful singing children. They are going to sing to you the first verse by themselves, okay? And then we are going to sing back to them the second verse. So I want you to take a look at those words of the second verse and be ready, because they will probably not be familiar to you, but give it your best shot anyway. And then we'll all sing the first verse again together.
Thank you all. So when I was a boy growing up in Wisconsin in the 1950s and 60s, Thanksgiving was a pure, carefree, and joyous holiday. And in school, I was taught what all of you my age or older were taught, that in 1621, after surviving that first harsh winter in the New World, at a rough-hewn settlement on the shores of Massachusetts Bay in what is now called Plymouth, Massachusetts, the Pilgrim survivors, though those just 53 hardy English separatists, 1/3 of the original settlement, who had managed to survive that first terrible winter only because of the help of the Wampanoag tribe on whose land they had settled, that the myth goes invited nearly 100 of their helpful neighbors to a feast to celebrate God's bounty and graciousness. Here is the typical representation of that event, which shows the pilgrims and the natives peaceably enjoying a profligate feast together, sharing the bountiful foods of the autumnal season. If you go online, there are hundreds of pictures like this of that scene. It is this congenial and noble scene which gave rise to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt declaring in 1940, the fourth Thursday in November, to be an official, quote, day of public thanksgiving, when the American people would join together in taking a day of rest and gather around a profligate table with family and friends to celebrate the bounty of life. And as a boy, Thanksgiving was one of my favorite and most anticipated days of the year. For in the Alexander family, with the brightly colored leaves all down from the trees, we lived in 4 acres of woods outside of Racine, Wisconsin. And every year, without exception, we had first a lazy special breakfast that morning with the aromas of the traditional turkey dinner, which my mother and father prepared with such elaborate care, already wafting through the house. And in the afternoon, we always watched the Green Bay Packers try to beat the Detroit Lions. That was the only game on Thanksgiving Day. Usually followed for us with a brisk autumnal walk down to nearby Lake Michigan before we sat down together to enjoy the much anticipated holiday meal, sometimes joined by my noisy Ewing cousins from Milwaukee. It was a simple, carefree day of warmth and togetherness and tradition, with just a bit of gluttony and laughter thrown in for good measure. Now that my parents, bless their hearts, are long gone, and my brothers and their families widely scattered, my Thanksgivings are different but still special. This coming Thursday, for example, I'm happy to report that Collins and I will, assuming our travel goes well over the next couple of days, will be at my brother George's house in rural Glen Beulah, Wisconsin. You've never heard of it. Again, in the woods, in front of a roaring fireplace and an abundant dinner table, with about a dozen of my Alexander clan's nieces and nephews and their children. Like in the days of old, I count on a good time being had by all. But this Thanksgiving, for me at least, there's a rather large fly in the holiday ointment. For over recent years, as our collective historical awareness of the actual truth of the events that surround that first Thanksgiving have become tragically clear. We've already alluded to some of that this morning. So my perspective on this holiday, and surely your perspective as well, has become more complex than it once innocently was. Let me make sure we're all on the same page with our knowledge in terms of what we know about this original holiday. Over recent decades, the surviving native peoples who originally inhabited what is now called America have called our nation's attention to the painful truth of what happened to the indigenous population after the European settlers, quote unquote, discovered America. They and historians have insisted that non-indigenous white Americans, including people like me, who are direct descendants of those early English separatists. My family landed here in 1630 in Salem, Massachusetts. Puritans they. We must face full and take account for the terrible genocidal history that lies just beyond the fanciful myth that was perpetrated about that first Thanksgiving. Historian Mike Doyle, in an article entitled 9 Myths About Thanksgiving and the Facts Behind Them, spells out the truth about the tragic and violent interface between the indigenous Wampanoags and the English separatists in Plymouth. I quote him, "The tale of pilgrims sharing a celebratory meal in November of 1621 with their Native American neighbors reflects, of course, a revisionist version of history that hides the truth beyond what really happened all those many years ago. A truth," he goes on, "that can be somewhat harsh. But it is absolutely vital to debunk Thanksgiving myths because they perpetuate stereotypes about indigenous people in this country and contribute to their modern day oppression. First," he writes, "while there is historical evidence that a feast was actually held in the fall of 1621, there is no evidence that any Native Americans were actually invited. If any Native Americans did attend that dinner, historians believe it was either because members of the Wampanoag tribe who lived nearby the Plymouth settlement heard the settlers firing warning shots toward their tribe, or because the Wampanoag leader, Tisquantum, who was called Squanto by the English and was later cruelly enslaved and sent to England, was making a diplomatic visit to the settlers' village. Now, this first Thanksgiving, next picture, please. This first Thanksgiving, portrayed by Massachusetts artist Karen Rinaldo in 1995, this, the Wampanoag leaders and historians say, is perhaps one of the most accurate portrayals of that first Thanksgiving gathering. In any case, the author goes on, "The 1621 event, which again may or may not have actually happened, was a one-time deal, and relations between the Pilgrims and Native Americans deteriorated shortly after. In 1637, the settlers attacked the Wampanoag tribe in retaliation for a murder which the settlers believed the Wampanoag committed by burning a nearby Wampanoag village, killing around 500 Native people. And the governor of Plymouth reportedly wrote that every subsequent Thanksgiving Day should be held, quote, in honor of that bloody victory." And then Doyle concludes, "The reality is that relations between the Wampanoags and the separatists following the establishment of the Plymouth colony was tenuous at best, and if they did dine together that November, it might not have been willing, and what tragically followed that dinner was a few hundred years of violent colonization and genocide." And we later day Americans now know, and we now know at least some of the heartbreaking details and outlines of what Dr. Doyle is describing here. Brutal truths about how the indigenous peoples in early America were treated by the European settlers. Heartbreaking truths that were hidden from me, at least, when I was growing up, and I suspect most of you. As the ever-increasing flow of land and resource-hungry European settlers spread out across the American continent without any permission, as far as I know, divine or otherwise, the millions of indigenous peoples living across the vast expanse of what we now call North America, many with highly developed cultures and communities, were all but wiped out. And the survivors, the few hundred thousands oppressed by means of outright genocidal slaughter, deadly disease introduced by the settlers, cruel forced migrations, the Trail of Tears, outright theft by force of vast tract of lands, and fishing and hunting rights abrogated, broken treaties and other deceits, and cultural genocide by means of a forced reservation system, and as you've all become aware of in the recent decades, the terrible Indian schooling system which the Unitarians of colonial New England participated in. To name just a few of the inhumane ways in which powerful and well-armed European settlers wrenched the American continent from its original inhabitants. So the fly in the ointment, at least perhaps it should be understood as something more than that, for all well-meaning and culturally aware Americans celebrating the Thanksgiving holiday is a measure of sadness and regret and shame that we feel that comes with our growing awareness of the terrible brutality and injustice that lies just beyond the wonderful and warm family traditions that we are about to celebrate this week. As Nadra Karam-Nittel writes in a recent blog post on thought.com, Thanksgiving has become synonymous with family and food and football, but this uniquely American holiday cannot be without controversy. While school children still learn that Thanksgiving marks the day that pilgrims met helpful indigenous peoples who gave them food and farming tips to survive the winter, the group called the United American Indians of New England established, as Linda pointed out, Thanksgiving as its national day of mourning in 1970. The fact that some Native peoples mourn on this day poses a question to socially conscious Americans: should Thanksgiving be celebrated at all? So, given what we now know about the true and tragic facts surrounding the original Thanksgiving and the subsequent injustice and genocide perpetrated on indigenous peoples, maybe like the towering Confederate statues that used to dominate downtown Richmond, Virginia, and they've been melted down for scrap and moved, maybe Thanksgiving Day, despite all of its delightful and harmless traditions and the family-centered enjoyment so many of us take from the day, maybe Thanksgiving should be taken down from its cultural pedestal and relegated itself to the dust heap of history. But I, for one, would like to think that any such dramatic cancel culture approach would be both tragic, unhelpful, and unnecessary, not alone, just downright unproductive. I would like to believe that we Unitarian Universalists and other compassionate and aware Americans who are rightly and deeply concerned about injustice and oppression and violence wherever and however it occurs can find a way to both first be sincere, active, and contrite allies for America's remaining Native populations in their ongoing struggle for justice and remediation, while at the same time find our way clear each November to still enjoy this uniquely American holiday that celebrates gratitude for life's bounty and is a blessing with family and friends. I don't see any spiritual or ethical point this coming Thursday when I am gathered with my warm extended family in Wisconsin to make us collectively miserable with guilt and shame around the dining room table, focusing solely on the cruelty that was perpetrated against American indigenous people by my distant ancestors. Thanksgiving, as it now represents a wonderful cultural excuse for family and friends to gather joyfully around a table and give thanks for each other and life's many blessings, I think is simply too spiritually important for us to forsake, even in the harsh and unavoidable light of our new historical understandings. So I pray that everyone within the sound of my voice will not hesitate to enjoy themselves this Thursday. But that said, let us neither this Thanksgiving in the year 2022 fail to recommit ourselves to the very real social justice and reparations work that lies ahead for America in terms of its indigenous peoples. Some in the political realm in this country want us to just simply forget all the remedial work we still have to do with our African American neighbors and our Native American neighbors. It seems to me that as a people of goodwill and moral sensibility, we can simultaneously hold in our hearts and our minds this week and every week throughout the year, first, the opportunity to unreservedly enjoy a warm and generous holiday feast with our family and friends. Enjoy it, while not refusing on that occasion to remind ourselves and others of this nation's continuing pressing social justice obligations to remediate our shameful historical treatment of Indigenous peoples and other minorities. This dual and paradoxical awareness for Thanksgiving will be the focus of the table grace that I offer to my family on Thanksgiving, to give thanks for each other and yet to still be aware of what lies ahead for us as a moral people. As 21st century Americans, surely we are spiritually capable this week and all weeks of holding these two bipolar realities in our hearts and minds at the same time. So this Thanksgiving week, dear friends, I urge you to have both peace and unrest. Peace and joy when you gather around the harvest table with your loved ones this Thursday, with a measure of unrest and discomfort as you remember and as you promise to work in the days ahead to correct the terrible injustices of our particular culture. Thus, holding the modern paradox of Thanksgiving in our hearts and minds, we can, as Unitarian Universalists, successfully navigate this complicated and wonderful holiday. So I say to you, peace and unrest, my dear friends. Peace and unrest. Can you hold those both in your heads? All right. Amen. For the beauty of the earth.
Our closing hymn today is number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing. For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the stars, for the love which from on earth over and around us lies.
And I send you to your Thanksgiving weeks with this little bit of Thanksgiving wisdom from an anonymous writer. Be thankful for the clothes that fit a little too snug because it reminds you you have enough to eat. Be thankful for the mess you clean up after a party because it means you've been surrounded by friends. Be thankful for the taxes you pay because it means you're employed. Be thankful that your lawn needs mowing and that your windows need fixing because it means you have a home. Be thankful for your heating bill because it means you stay warm. Be thankful for the laundry because it means you have clothes to wear. Be thankful for the space you find at the far end of the parking lot because it means you can walk. Be thankful for the lady who sings off key behind you in the pew in church because it means you can hear. Be thankful for the alarm that goes off in the early morning hours because it means you're still alive.
We now extinguish this chalice. But not the light of hope and truth, not the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you for that lovely piece. Thank you, the choir that shared that wonderful music with us this morning, and I was very moved. We invite our congregants attending worship on Zoom to join us for our virtual Greet Your Neighbor Coffee Hour today to discuss the service theme and enjoy fellowship with other congregants. The link is in the chat box and will be on a forthcoming slide. Those here in person are invited to join us for coffee or tea and fellowship. We hope you will also use the chat box as a virtual receiving line to leave a message about your appreciation for the worship service. We are going to leave the chairs set up as they were at the beginning of the service, so we ask that you do not stack the chairs. Go with gratitude in your hearts for our beloved community and spiritual home at Thanksgiving.